Well, good morning once again. My name is Kerry Gregory. I serve with Operation Christmas Child as the church relations manager. Yesterday, as I was listening to Beth Jessel. Beth, are you here? Where's Beth? She may not be here. As I was listening to Beth share yesterday, I was kind of chuckling to myself because of the direction that I had been thinking about going with devotions this morning. And what she shared, she talked about, I remember watching football, I think, with her dad. And I didn't get a great sense of whether or not she was a real big football fan. But she was very clear to say that she was not a fan of the commercials. Certainly understandable. But what I actually wanted to do this morning is kind of go in the direction to talk about, well, what does it mean to be a fan? And actually how that can affect our view of what it means to be a Christ follower. Now, at this point, I should footnote this morning's devotion, credit Kyle Eidelman for inspiration. Kyle is the teaching pastor at Southeast Christian Church, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. And a book that he's written, it's called Not a Fan: Becoming a completely committed follower of Jesus. It's something that I've been reading, and it's been impacting my thinking of what it means to be a Christ follower. So if after this is not an advertisement, I get nothing off of this. However, if after today's devotion you'd like to order Not a Fan, actually I think at Mardell it's like $5, maybe cheaper if you use a Nook or a Kindle or something. But I have to give you fair warning on this, because in the introduction to his own book, Kyle Eidelman says this. He says, "I hope you will read this book and discover with me what it really means to follow Jesus. I will talk more about repentance than forgiveness, more about surrender than salvation, more about brokenness than happiness, and more about death than about life. The truth is, if you're looking for a book about following Jesus that lays out a comfortable and reassuring path, you won't find it here." So you've been warned. And to back up a little bit, I want to set the context for kind of what it does mean to be a fan. And I'm going to provide the best insight that I can using an example of someone that I know reasonably well, which is me. Now, what I have in my hand, what I have in my hand here is a painter's cap. And some of you are actually old enough to remember the painter's cap fad. I won't ask you to raise your hands. But this was back at a time when painter's caps were more than just a practical thing to keep paint off of your head and out of your hair while you were painting. They were actually kind of a cool accessory, not unlike jelly shoes or parachute pants. Yes, I grew up in the 80s. But this is no ordinary painter's cap. And now I'm about to reveal to you why. This painter's cap is special to me, because this painter's, you won't be able to see it, I'm sure, from across the room. But I've kept this hat since 1983. A lot of you in this room were not alive in 1983. It says, on the front, it says NCAA 1983 Final Four. On the back, it says Albuquerque, New Mexico. And on the top is printed Houston, #1, Phi Slamma Jamma. I'm willing to bet that the term Phi Slamma Jamma has never been used in Samaritan's Purse devotions. Now, the reason I keep this hat is because in 1983 was the last year that North Carolina State University won an NCAA National Basketball Championship. There we go. We got a couple of Wolfpack folks. Now, I'm not here to cause a riot. Okay, that's not the purpose. Stick with me. So. North Carolina State won the NCAA championship that year against an arguably much stronger Houston Cougars team. North Carolina State had only made it into the NCAA tournament by winning the ACC tournament that year. That landed them a number 6 seed in their division. Houston, of course, was a #1 seed. At the end of the game, which was as I said, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it was played in the Pit, the University of New Mexico, in Albuquerque. And the end of the game was basically a 30-foot air ball by Derek Wittenberg, which was promptly plucked out of the air by Lorenzo Charles and dunked into the basket, providing the winning margin for the Wolfpack. And it was not a rim-rattling, house-shaking dunk. After the dunk, he looked as surprised as anybody else that he had caught it, and he put it in the basket. And even if you are not a North Carolina State fan, like I said, I'm not here to cause arguments or fights. Even if you are not an NC State fan, you would recognize the footage at the end of that game of Jim Valvano, our head coach at the time, running out onto the floor in celebration and just looking for somebody to hug. And for a little while, not finding anybody. That year, Hakeem Olajuwon, was again part of the Phi Slamma Jamma crew, along with Clyde the Glide. Hakeem Olajuwon actually won the Most Outstanding Player award that year, becoming the last player to do so on a team that failed to win the national championship. Now, why do I tell you all this? Why do I say all this and pull out my 30-year-old hat? The reason is because I'm a fan, right? I know about some of the players. I know about their victories in 1974 and 1983. I can tell you that in 1983 was the first year that I remember filling out an NCAA basketball bracket. I was in 9th grade, and I was given a copy by my junior high football coach. And in 1983, yes, even then, as a fan, I filled out that bracket to have I wish I still had it. I filled out that bracket to have North Carolina State go all the way to the national championship and win. Against some pretty steep odds. I don't know how many other picks that I got correct. Sorry, how many other picks I got correct in that bracket, but I got that one, and really for one reason: I was a fan. I'm not saying that North Carolina State's going to win the championship this year. I'd love it if they did, but the thing about it is, like I said, I know the players, I know some of the history, but I didn't have anything to do with any of those victories. I sit and I cheer from in front of a television, often frightening small children and my dog. My family just chooses to leave the house mostly when this happens. And for 4 years, I cheered from the seats in Reynolds Coliseum because I was a student at NC State. But what Kyle Idleman shares in his book is basically that this is what it means for a lot of folks today to be a Christian. They know about Jesus. They skim over the question of what does it mean to be a Christian. Maybe they've liked Jesus on Facebook. By the way, if you want to look this up, Jesus has a lot of likers on on Facebook. They've come forward. They've walked the aisle or whatever. But it doesn't necessarily cost a lot. As a fan, there's not a lot that's required. There's no sweat. There's no hours of daily practice. And there's no hard fouls to take. So the question is then, well, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? Idleman supposes that if many were to accurately define their relationship with Christ, they're followers, or they're not followers, they're fans. They confuse, I love the way he puts this, they confuse admiration for devotion and mistake knowledge for intimacy. He says they are enthusiastic admirers, much as I describe myself, but with that, there's often not much that's required. I don't have time to give a full synopsis of the book. That's not my goal, and honestly, I haven't finished it yet, so that wouldn't be entirely fair. But as I look ahead, here's what I expect to find. I expect to be encouraged, just as we were encouraged yesterday watching that John 3:16 video. For God so loved the world, and you get the image of the children in your head, right? For God so loved the world, anyone, everyone, and I love the little boy. He goes, "That's a lot of people." And that God has called us into a relationship with Him. It says in Ephesians that I'm adopted. I didn't have anything to do with earning my way into a relationship with God. I didn't earn a place of relationship with Him, but I was brought to Him by His plan and His purpose. Ephesians 1:7-8, it says that in Him we have redemption through His blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses according to the riches of His grace, that He lavished on us. There's encouragement there. And with Christ's righteousness having been imputed to us, having been given to us, not earned, not deserved, but by faith, Christ's righteousness being imputed to us. Romans 8:1, I believe it says that there's now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And so again, as I look forward, I expect to continue to find that kind of encouragement. But also, as I look ahead, I want to be prepared to reevaluate the cost that's involved in being a Christ follower and committing with my whole heart to seek after Him and to walk with Him. I think there's some strong implications, and this is what I've been facing recently here, thinking about some strong implications of Matthew 16, where He says, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. There's a cost to being a follower and not a fan, But the amazing thing is that the Bible is really very clear in telling us that it's not misery. That actually the paradox is that in dying to ourselves, that we actually find the life that we really long for, because that's the way that God has made us and the way that God has created us. So as we go to prayer this morning, I just would like to interject one quick prayer request, and that is there are several of us that are leaving tomorrow. We'll be heading down to Peru as part of the advance team, getting ready for the opportunity to host many of you who are here. Those are going on as part of the 10-year staff trip coming up to Peru. So if you would, please keep us in prayer as we go. We'll be doing some site visits over the next couple of days as we prepare. Just those final touches, crossing T's and dotting I's before folks arrive on Monday. And then certainly praying for God's hand through all that will be a part of next week in Peru as we come alongside the national leadership team and those local believers, local pastors, as they do the distributions, and we get to see that and be a part of that. So looking forward to being with many of you who are here and some of our other special guests. So if you would, please include that in your prayers this morning as we go to prayer. Thanks.